So it looks like the United States is planning to force open the Strait of Hormuz with our military, and we are probably going to be doing it alone. This comes after President Trump's request for assistance was effectively denied by our allies around the world, to which he responded earlier today, so what? We didn't even need your help to begin with, never did. We also have the first senior U.S. official resigning over the war, saying that President Trump was tricked into starting this conflict. Now, starting out, the Strait of Hormuz has kind of taken center focus in this conflict, understandably so. We knew that's the direction it could go. The U.S., Iran, everyone around the world knew that any conflict with Iran would likely center around the Strait of Hormuz. They shut it off a lot faster than most people expected, but they shut it off in a different way. Most war games, and I'll pull up a map here to give you an idea of the area we're talking about. Most war games, when looking at a war with Iran, this is Iran here to the north. We've got the Persian Gulf, and then the Strait of Hormuz is this bend right here. It makes it a very narrow area for ships to pass through. Most war games thought that mines would be placed in there, and Iran would effectively shut down the entire strait, like nobody's going through. They did it differently. Instead of mines, while there might be some that's still up in the air, they use drones to target commercial vessels. What that meant is they get to discriminate what they hit and what they let through. So, folks will argue that the strait is not actually closed. It is, right? 4 Iranian vessels getting through does not make the strait open. It just means that Iran has found a more effective way of inflicting damage via the Strait of Hormuz. They are allowing their ships and the ships of their allies. We've seen, I think, some Indian and some Chinese vessels have made it through while shutting everyone else off. So it's just a better way for Iran to close the strait. This is clearly an issue. The problem here is that this is something that affects the world economy. It affects our Gulf partners. It affects the United States. It affects our allies in Europe. Again, it affects the entire world. The longer that this is closed off, the more pressure will be mounting on President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to bring this to a close so we can get oil prices and the global economy back on track. So it's an issue that builds over time. And a long-standing assumption was that Iran could only shut it off for a short period of time because they're hurting their own economy. It's suicide, economic suicide, to not allow any of their own vessels out. They went around that by using drones to selectively target what they hit. So we know that the pressure has been mounting on the Trump administration and Israel to find a solution here. Negotiations don't seem to be on the table at all. There's no indications that we're anywhere near that. So the next option then is forcing Iran to open the strait, or using the military effectively, push in there, open it, and Iran can't do anything to stop those commercial vessels from moving. It's very challenging to do that. Now, President Trump, understandably so, reached out to a number of our allies asking for help in doing this. It would be a significant, relatively long, open-ended is the best way to put it. I don't know if this will take a week, a month, a year, or longer. This is the kind of operation that could be ongoing in perpetuity. And we'll get into that here in a second. President Trump reached out to our allies around the world in a very public manner, saying, come on over here and do this. Understandably, not everyone around the world was chomping at the bit to come help the United States, not after how we've treated some of our allies so far in the last year or so. And really across the board, they said no. So Phil Stewart, the national security reporter over at Reuters, put together a good roll-up here with a couple of them. The German defense minister said, quote, "This is not our war. We have not started it." Japan said they have no plans to dispatch naval vessels to escort ships in the Middle East. Australia said they will not be sending naval ships to assist in the reopening. The British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, said that they would not be drawn into the Iran war. And Greece said that they would not engage in military operations in the Strait of Hormuz. Again, just about everybody. I mean, the best I saw was like South Korea saying maybe after the fighting stops, we would consider helping in some way. Like, not super helpful for right now, right? The United States needs this assistance today to get the strait open. And coalitions are good. We need coalitions. I wish we had a coalition here, but you have to build that before hostilities start. It becomes infinitely harder to get people on board with a conflict or an operation after the bullets, the missiles, and the drones are already flying. That's the challenge right now. Building this coalition right now is maybe impossible. It's going to be very small coalition, much smaller than it could have been if this case had been presented to our allies and we were all on board before the first strikes were carried out. Now, President Trump, clearly upset at the response to this, lashed out a bit earlier today, saying, quote, "The United States has been informed by most of our NATO allies," and allies is in quotes, "that they don't want to get involved with our military operation against the terrorist regime of Iran. We no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. We never did. Likewise for Japan, Australia, or South Korea. In fact, we do not need the help of anyone." It's hard to not read that as like a bit of a temper tantrum, right? Like, who does that? We could use your help. No, whatever. We don't need you in the first place. But that's the response that we're getting today. So it's worth looking at what it would require for the U.S. military to go at this unilaterally and open the strait. And to that end, Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery had a piece in the Wall Street Journal just yesterday talking about what military operations here could look like. He says, first, we would need to continue to degrade to a militarily manageable risk the missiles, mines, drones, and unmanned surface combatants that could threaten U.S. forces and tankers. We're doing that right now, actively underway. Those are the continuous U.S. and Israeli strikes happening across Iran. Second, he says we need to maintain an unblinking eye, persistent ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, that looks 50 miles on either side of the strait and 100 miles back. So turning to our map here, that's a big chunk. All right. So it's trying to effectively keep eyes on 24/7. And now we're getting into the for how long window. There's no clear answer to that. To be able to watch not just the strait. We've got some solutions for that here in a second, but anything back, 100 miles back, he says, in a number of directions to watch for any drone launches that could be directed at the strait. We have the resources to do that. All right, it's significant. It's a lot of unmanned aerial vehicles that would be overhead, but we do have plenty that could do that. It's just we're starting to see the longer-term commitment that maybe wasn't really in the cards or presented when the first strikes were carried out a couple weeks ago. He says, third, we need to keep 4 to 8 aircraft persistently overhead during convoy operations with the APKWS, the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System, a cheap rocket extremely effective against Shahed drones. So the persistent ISR is one thing. You're watching to make sure no bad guys pop out and launch drones at the ships, but you got to have offensive and defensive capabilities out there as well. So if you find that bad guy and he gets the munition off, you got to be able to intercept it. You also want to be able to strike that preemptively so they can't get that missile or drone loosed. To that, he's talking about 4 to 8 aircraft persistently overhead. Fixed-wing aircraft is what he's talking about there, so fighter jets. On top of that, he suggests having armed helicopters ready to attack small boats that might emerge along the coastline. Again, helicopters don't have that significant of a range, so they'd have to be based somewhere in this general region, maybe off of some of the naval vessels we forward deploy into this region. You're just, each one of these is just a little bit more of a military presence, a little bit bigger, a little bit more. The last one here, he says we would need to deploy 10 to 14 Aegis destroyers whose air defenses make them the perfect escort ship. These surface combatants first need to be brought into place, and then allies could join later. Yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to have allies involved in this. I just don't know that that's in the cards anytime soon. So now what we're getting at in terms of opening the strait, this is not like a one-time clearance operation. All right, there's a good example I heard recently on a podcast, I can't remember which one it was, where they said the Strait of Hormuz is very similar to the counterterrorism fight that we've been dealing with for 20 plus years, where we need to be right 100% of the time. We have to catch everything. They only need to be right one time. So the issue with the Strait of Hormuz is not that there's a number of military installations around here that we need to step in, push through, clear out, and then it's resolved. They have drone capabilities that can be launched from significant distance inside of Iran, and they don't even have to hit the ship is the problem. The commercial vessels that are in the Persian Gulf now and those that are queuing up in the Gulf of Oman trying to get in, they're not willing to take this risk. And it's not that drone launches are down or that missile launches are down or that, I mean, for instance, I think it's been 2 or 3 days since a commercial vessel was hit in the Persian Gulf. That's good. But all of them need to know that they won't get hit when they go through tomorrow or next week. That is unknown right now. And that's why the ships aren't moving. So it's not a matter of clearing out, putting, some Marines on the ground, special operators in certain areas and flying a couple aircraft overhead, and then the strait is magically opened for a period of time. It's only opened right then. All right? So we put all of this firepower there, open the strait for the ships to come through for a few hours. That has to be a constant presence, like a long-term presence, weeks, months, years. At some point, you have to resolve the root issue, and the root issue here is the Iranian regime. So the opening of the Strait of Hormuz can be done militarily. We have the ability to do that. It would likely result in additional U.S. losses. That's just a significant fight in that area, a very congested area to put a lot of troops into. We can do it. It's going to be asking a lot, and it does open the door to a much longer-term war. Something to keep in mind here that would require additional U.S. support to entering into a long-term conflict. And that's where I want to talk about a resignation that just happened a few hours ago, the first of the Trump administration, where a senior official stepped down, citing this war directly as the reason. So this is coming from Joe Kent. Put his statement here on the screen. He was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. He said, quote, "I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States, and you should strike now, and that there is a clear path to a swift victory." There's a lot to unpack in Kent's statement here. I do want to stress that everybody is kind of using this to their own political ends at this point. Unfortunately, I've seen a number of people go after, well, look, my personal opinion here is anybody that stands for their principles, I think is noteworthy. All right. So regardless of his policies or his beliefs or whether you align with everything or not, to Kent, this was a bridge too far. And he said, not going to do that. I can't be on board with this. It's against what I stand for. Again, I think there's some value of that in government, and there's not a lot of that these days, unfortunately. That said, this has become a very partisan conflict very, very quickly. So we're seeing a lot of folks on the left. So the Democrats looking at this saying, this is a Trump appointee backing out. He's losing the coalition, and pointing to the fact that this is the director of National Counterterrorism Center, right? And they're not wrong on any of that. Trump didn't say anything bad about Kent until this resignation came up. And part of the pushback from inside the administration was that Kent has been pushed out. He's been ostracized. He's not a part of these briefings, not a part of this planning. That's not good. Like, I don't want to hear that. He's the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. President Trump today referred to the Iranian terrorist regime. We know one of the major fallouts of this conflict could be terrorist attacks abroad. I hope the director of the National Counterterrorism Center was at least a little bit involved in the planning and the execution of this war. I mean, he's going to be involved in the fallout, no doubt. Then kind of mixed from what I've seen on the right side of the aisle, you tend to have folks that are 100% like in Trump camp, attacking Kent, kind of brushing him aside. This is nothing. There's others that, Kent has a very impressive military career. And there's a lot of folks, especially with military background, kind of standing by his side, applauding his integrity and wishing him the best going forward. But this is a notable one. Again, the first high profile, not a cabinet position, of course, but somebody that had to get confirmed by the Senate. So this is the first time we've seen anybody stepping out saying, can't do this. This isn't right. I'm moving on. So this will be interesting to see if it has any impact at all. I mean, does it open the door for more people to voice their opposition? We haven't really seen that at all yet. I wouldn't say that's out of the realm of possibility. This is not, right now, a super popular war. Depending on the polls you look at, I think the highest support is around 45%. So underwater, at like the highest level, it's underwater. When you get into like broken out by party affiliation and partisan lines, you'll find that some Republican polls and some MAGA-only polls show overwhelming support. But when you're looking at the entirety of the U.S. population, split roughly 50-50, right and left, the support is generally below 50%. So it wouldn't be crazy to see other politicians or people with future political aspirations using this as an opportunity to step out and say, I was against the Iran war, right? Maybe that door has been open. At the same time, this might solidify some of the decision makers around President Trump that are squarely in line with what he wants to do. If you have somebody like Kent that is pushing back and maybe opposed to some of these actions, and now he's been completely removed, he might be back, if he's backfilled at all, might be backfilled with somebody more willing to just go along with whatever the president and his administration says. So it'll be interesting to see if this has any impact at all on the way the war is being executed. That's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.